Rebecca is not here. Next, we have Putting Students First, Jacqueline Falcone.
Jacqueline Falcone, a parent of Gilpin students. DPS has sole responsibility of putting our students first. Only then can we expect their teachers to be able to do their jobs and meet the needs of every student. When our son stated he wanted to get better at math and asked us to find him a tutor, we were able to do just that. We know that he struggles in math and we're able to find and pay for a tutor outside of school. As his parents, we definitely know it's not his teacher's fault and that he struggles in math. It's just one of his weaknesses. We are lucky that we are able to support his educational needs outside of school, just like other middle-class parents who are able to pay to support their children's academic needs. Unfortunately, many of Gilpin's students can't do the same. In this case, it's the district's responsibility to find the means to support every student who struggles in academics and not put it solely on the heads of teachers who have more than 25 kids in the classroom. However, you are the first to blame the teachers for students' academic shortcomings and take none of the responsibility yourself, just as you did when you blamed teachers for the school's low performance and ignored your failure as a leader of Denver Public Schools. Our son's class has 27 kids, a teacher and para. It's safe to say that at least a quarter of the kids in his class at Gilpin are below grade level, have high needs, have some discipline issues, while others are above grade level, all common factors in any red, yellow, or orange school. Needless to say, the teacher can't possibly attend to the academic needs of 27 individual needs in math, reading, and writing, even with a para. It would be more reasonable if his class had 15 students, definitely not more than 18. Again, it is the district's responsibility to put students first by providing smaller class sizes in order to support teachers. You should know by now that research shows that smaller class size is the first most important factor in helping students below grade level to increase in academic performance. However, you have chosen to ignore that research and instead have set the stage for red, orange, yellow schools to fail. That is not putting students first. Most of these schools have classes that are too large and teachers can't do their jobs to the best of their abilities. It seems like your only objective is to see that these schools fail under the SPF framework so that you can close them after giving them only 3 years to improve and lease their buildings to charter schools, even though research shows charter schools don't do any better. You aren't also putting students first because you have no policy in place for principals to hire only trained, licensed, and experienced teachers, which research also shows is critical in the achievement of below grade level students. All year, my daughter has had a teacher who is not Montessori trained and hasn't been utilizing Montessori materials in class. Again, I don't blame the teacher, I blame you. Under your leadership, many low-performing schools in the district were cleansed of licensed and experienced teachers during the process of innovation, turnaround, restart, and closure, and replaced with first-year teachers, Teach for America teachers who went through marathon training, and teachers getting their teacher license while teaching high-need students. That's not putting students first. But perhaps I shouldn't blame you. After all, you have no background in education, and I understand you never attended public schools, only private schools. Our schools are being run under a ruthless, detached, self-serving business model, which is destroying our neighborhood schools, resegregating our schools, and shutting the most disadvantaged and vulnerable students out of their own schools. That is not putting students first.
Thank you. Next topic is community involvement in school closures. Corey Dokerson. Community involvement in the closure of Gilpin Montessori School, Virginia Delgado.
Good evening. My name is Virginia Delgado, and I'm a parent of 2 children at Gilpin. It is disappointing to see how DPS representatives have ignored parents at Gilpin. You pride yourself on living by the core values of DPS, but feel that you don't have to follow them. Are you really putting students first, closing the school? Are you really displaying integrity, equity, and accountability? We have asked several questions and have yet to receive reasonable answers. Question number 1, why does Gilpin not receive a phase-out year as has been done with previous closures, which is quite a few? How can you justify inconsistent scores being applied to the same narrative in SQR? Not once in several years of parents and community members attending SPF, Town Hall, and SQR results meetings has DPS said that the Curtis 5 Points is seeing a low enrollment and that Gilpin is threatened with closure. Low enrollment issues were certainly not presented this year or last year in any conversations with the school community prior to the SQR results being announced. We were always told that the school would at least receive a restart. Never, ever was the threat of losing an elementary program at the Gilpin campus. Sorry, today was a rough day for me. I hope the current board members and those running for office really put students first and keep schools open to benefit students and families. It is my hope that people elected to be board have an education background and have sent their children to public schools and believe and support the public education system. I hope they will stay in touch with the community and schools and recognize what is best for them, not losing sight of our ultimate goal, which is to serve and educate the community, the families, and most important, students. Since I'm representing our Hispanic families, I'm going to say this in Spanish as well. Es decepcionante ver cómo los representantes de las escuelas públicas de Denver han ignorado a las familias de Gilpin. Se enorgullecen de promover sus valores, pero no tienen que seguirlos. ¿Realmente están poniendo a los estudiantes en primer lugar? ¿Realmente están demostrando integridad, equidad y responsabilidad? Nosotros, los padres de Gilpin, hemos hecho las siguientes preguntas y no hemos recibido respuestas. ¿Por qué Gilpin no se le dio el resto de este ciclo escolar y el próximo antes de que se cerrara por completo? ¿Cómo pueden justificar las inconsistencias de los resultados aplicados a las mismas narrativas del SQR? Todavía no hemos recibido respuestas. Mi esperanza como madre de familia es que las personas elegidas como miembros del buró tengan experiencia en el campo educativo y tengan a sus hijos en escuelas públicas y crean y apoyen el sistema público de educación. Espero que estén en contacto directo con la comunidad, escuelas y mantener el objetivo que es servir, educar a la comunidad, a las familias y lo más importante, a nuestros alumnos. Thank you.
Thank you. On the closure of Gilpin Montessori School, Eric Crow.
Hello once more, Eric Trow, local branch secretary of the Denver Green Party, 4-year Gilpin volunteer and a 15-year citizen of 5 Points. And it's because my boots have been on the ground here in Northeast Denver for this long that this much I can say with confidence. There are more than enough children in our neighborhoods to fill Gilpin Montessori to whatever capacity you desire. Nearly every single day since the summer of 2002, I've walked through this part of town, and I can honestly say that I have never in my time seen so many couples with babies and young children. However, these new children are overwhelmingly white, and these families are not assimilating into our neighborhoods or sending the children to the local public school. These separatist families have made it so that the rest of us, mostly people of color and the white working poor, can no longer afford the inflated rents and property taxes, or now even send our young folks to a nearby quality school. For decades now, Curtis Park and 5 Points, the historic African-American part of town, has been majority Caucasian. Yet our school population at Gilpin has remained 75% students of color. And your silly color-coded rating system further stigmatized us as a red-rated school, discouraging parents who arrive from even considering an educational program with a lot to offer children of all backgrounds. Gilpin is not a red school. Primarily, it's a brown and black one, and that's just why, one part of why this particular closure is so deeply hurtful and offensive. The 5 Points community of color has already lost so much from years of gentrification, slow erosion. Soon, the Afro-American experience on our central corridors, Welton, California, will be reduced largely to a library, a couple of churches, and a community center. But mostly it's just historical placards and living people who aren't even aware that the school is closing because you failed to consult or involve the community. Rather than commit yourself to our scholars, the children who already live here, and invest adequately In the time and resources necessary to make our school a success, you are preparing my neighborhood's children for a lifetime of second-class citizenship. School closures kill community, and developers have been scheming for decades on how to disassociate 5 Points with blackness, and you're lending them quite the helping hand by clearing the little dark kids from our school building. Soon, all of 5 Points, or as I'm sure you already called it, BIPO, will be A-OK for O-Phase and their rich friends.
Thank you. Speaking on upcoming board election is Katherine Murphy.
Good evening. My name is Katherine Murphy. I am a parent of 2 DPS students and an advocate for community and family engagement in regards to DPS policies and their implementation. I am particularly interested in those DPS policies surrounding school performance, restarts, and closures. I have a student at Gilpin Elementary, which will close this year. I am a 20-year resident of 5 Points, Curtis Park, where Gilpin is located, and the CSC president at the school. Gilpin's closure has been a tremendous learning experience for me. I have learned about the policies in place and have gained insight into how the district central office operates. I am left feeling disheartened, and I'm very sorry about the fate of the next schools who will be targeted for closure or restart. Bless you. While I do not intend to discredit the hard work and dedication of our current board and district staff, with all due respect, I would like to encourage the public who is watching tonight and to share with their friends, families, and neighbors, the constituents that the school board and DPS serve, to pay close attention to the upcoming school board elections this coming November and the campaigns that are kicking off now. The ideology of the current board and the superintendent values reforms that use punitive measures and an emphasis on high-stakes testing to shutter our public schools serving the most vulnerable students. I encourage everyone to educate yourself on the issues surrounding school choice and the reform ideology. While the current board separates itself from DeVos vouchers, and I agree that is a good thing, there are many unsolved and escalating problems that have arisen from charter reform. I also encourage you to learn about new candidates that are and will be campaigning. You will find advocates for working within our traditional public schools to improve them rather than shutter them. You will find candidates that will do a better job when it comes to community engagement, understanding inequities, and what it takes to close the achievement gap. You will find candidates that advocate for our educators, our communities, our families, and students as a priority. You will find that community-based schools will be at the heart of their ideology, as opposed to the corporatization of our public and democratic education system. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking on the current climate in DPS, speaking on behalf of our Denver, our schools, is Mary.
Good evening. I am Mary Titus Sam, and tonight I am speaking for our Denver, our schools, also known as ODOS. We represent DPS stakeholders across the city. The current climate in DPS is tumultuous, turbulent, and troubled. Choice charters, high-stakes testing, teacher shortages, expensive outside consultants, how you spend bond money, and, as always, questions around transparency, equity, and racism all lead to stormy conditions. These issues themselves lead to an unsettled, ungovernable mess in DPS. On choice, the lack of a transparent process leads us to wonder if you use choice to fill undesirable schools. Parents at work can't visit 6 or 7 schools to make an informed choice. Most parents just want the choice of a traditional neighborhood school. On high-stakes testing, you're expanding it to K-2? Who did you consult about that? Educators will tell you that there are quick assessments currently used that give teachers sufficient information about the kids' achievement levels. We'd like to know who's making money on this. On teacher shortage, can ODOS get data on how many classrooms have gone without permanent teachers this year? Where are those classrooms? What is the average teacher experience level in those schools? And what is the average class size in those? On consultants, how much money is DPS paying for outside consultants like PRS and Scholarly? When might the public have that information? Can you show ODOS the budget line item where that information can be found? On the bond and mill levy, we understand that the law gives you leeway in how closely you have to follow your original plan to the fund. We hope that you will consult your stakeholders before deviating too far from what was promised. And who is selling the general obligation bond? Which law firms and financial institutions are involved? On equity and racism, when are you going to do the real work that it will take to make educational opportunities equal across the board? That is the only way you will start to narrow the opportunity/achievement. Tumultuous, turbulent, and troubled. The climate these days in DPS is unsettled and, quite frankly, unnecessary. If, instead of always voting 7-0 while listening to each other and your reformer financial supporters, if you would choose to listen to parents and their community, you could change the climate in DPS to one of peace and tranquility, almost overnight. Just
Thank you. And that ends our public comment session for this evening. Thank you all for, again, your patience and sharing. And as we return to the regular board meeting, I see there is no further business. So with that said, is adjourned to you all, and thank you for being here.